Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sophia Nobel Oration Series. On behalf of Department of Political Science, we welcome you all. Today's talk is on Nobel Peace Prize. Nobel Peace Prize 2020 was awarded to World Food Programme for its effort to combat hunger, for its contribution to bettering the condition of for peace in conflict affected areas, and for acting as a driving force in efforts to prevent the use of hunger as a weapon of war and conflict. Now, I call upon Shreya Shetty to give a brief introduction of the speaker.
Good evening, everybody. Today we have Dr. Nadaraja Manikam, who has worked since the 1980s in Malaysia and India in many capacities in various fields such as consumerism, environmentalism, philanthropy, education, people oriented design, institution building, software development, management, planning, urbanism, agroecology, alternative healing practices, interfaith actions, sustainability, and spirituality. He has a number of books and documentaries to his credit. In 1999, he published his PhD, Culture, Gender, and Ecology Beyond Workerism. Dr. Nadaraja was principal researcher with the Japanese Institute IICRC from 2000 to 2002 and has published a book entitled Urban Crisis, Culture and Sustainability of Cities. As Asian Public Intellectual API Fellow, he published a pictorial book on sustainability and spirituality in 2014, Living Pathways. A gifted and passionate photographer, he has produced a number of documentaries for the Press Trust of India and the satellite network AsiaNet. He recently designed and set up a virtual institution to promote agroecology, the International People's Agroecology Multiversity. He set up an innovative interfaith and transdisciplinary school of humanities and social science in Xavier University, Bhubaneswar, and was head of the Center for Compassion Studies in 2018. Dr. Nadaraja is a sociologist by training and obtained his PhD from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU from New Delhi. We are honored and really happy to have you today with us, Dr. Nad. And now I pass on to Vaishnavi Nair.
Hello, everyone. As Simon said in the starting, the Nobel Peace Prize 2020 was awarded to the World Food Programme. Now, let us look at the history of the Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Peace Prize is one of the five Nobel Prizes established by the will of Swedish inventor Alfred Nobel, along with the prizes in chemistry, physics, physiology or medicine, and literature. The Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded 101 times to 135 Nobel laureates between 1901 and 2020, 107 individuals and 28 organizations. The International Committee of the Red Cross has been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize three times. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize two times. The most recent prize was awarded to the World Food Programme in 2020. Now let us look at the history of the World Food Programme. The World Food Programme was established in 1961 when George McGowan, director of the US Food for the Peace Programme, proposed establishing a multilateral food aid program. The World Food Programme launched its first program in 1963 in Sudan. The World Food Programme's operations are funded by voluntary donations, principally from the governments of the world and also from the corporations and private donors. In 2019, funding was recorded around $8 billion, of which the largest donors were the United States and Germany. The motto of the World Food Programme stands for Saving Lives, Changing Lives. Now, I would like to elaborate on one country where the World Food Programme has helped to combat hunger, and the country is Syria. Millions of people have been displaced from their homes Conflicts in Syria's northeast and northwest have increased level of hunger and food insecurity as families have lost their homes, business, and income. In December 2019, conflict escalated in northwest Syria and western Aleppo. Close to 1 million people were forced to flee their homes in the largest wave of displacement since the crisis began. The World Food Programme launched an immediate response and scaled up its ongoing humanitarian operations in the Northwest and is now providing emergency food assistance to more than 1 million people each month through cross-border operations from Turkey. Across Syria, the World Food Programme continues to ensure that food reaches the most vulnerable families when they need it the most. 4.8 million people in Syria receive life-saving food from the World Food Programme each month. To put things in context, we would like to share a clip of the World Food Programme with you all.
On the one hand, after a century of massive strides in eliminating extreme poverty, today those 200 million of our neighbors are on the brink of starvation. That's more than the entire population of Western Europe. On the other hand, there's $400 trillion of wealth in our world today, even at the height of the COVID pandemic in just 90 days. An additional $2 trillion of wealth was created, and we only need $5 billion to save 30 million lives from famine. What am I missing here? A lot of my friends and leaders around the world have said to me, you've got the greatest job in the world, saving the lives of millions of people. Well, here's what I tell them. I don't go to bed at night thinking about the children we saved. I go to bed weeping over the children we could not save. And when we don't have enough money, nor the access we need, we have to decide which children eat and which children do not eat, which children live, which children die. How would you like that job? Please, don't ask us to choose who lives and who dies. In the spirit of Alfred Nobel, as inscribed on this medal, peace and brotherhood, let's feed them all. Food is the pathway to peace. The World Food Program.
Now, I welcome Dr. Nadaraja to deliver his lecture.
Uh, am I audible?
Yes, Nat.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to all. Thank you, Paul, for calling me for this, sharing session, lecture, whatever you want to call it. Okay. I think you have heard enough about the 2020 Nobel Peace Prize, Nobel Prize, and of course we are focusing on Nobel Peace Prize, and it is among the few organizations that have got this Peace Prize. But what I want to do now is to just go into some context in which we have to see this Nobel Peace Prize and the awarding of the Peace Prize to an organization, okay, and then ask ourselves some questions. So let me contextualize this Peace Prize and this awarding of a Peace Prize to an organization, the World Food Program. I'm going to give you three. I mean, there are many ways in which you can look at it, but I'm looking at three kind of contexts, very contradictory, very cruel, very disturbing. These are some of my concerns when you're looking at an issue like peace and an issue of awarding something like a peace prize to an organization, and our need to understand it. Now, if you look at I give you three instances of something that you need to consider the kind of world we are living in. Look at the figures for food waste in the world. Food waste, in a bigger sense, involves food loss and food waste. Food which are lost during production, distribution, during transport, during storage, and food that is lost, thrown away, which does not meet some standard. Food that are edible, that people can consume. Then table waste. Globally, there's a figure that goes something like this: 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted every year. Now, if you look at the figure that you just shared, I think you shared, WFP reaches out to about 800 million people. Of course, in Syria, it's a different story there. Now, if you look at 1.3 billion tons of food that's wasted, that can reach out to about 800 billion people 4 times over. So we need to ask this question, what kind of world are we living in, and why are so many people going through their life without food, going through hunger, going through starvation, and many of them die. And many of them are children. You want to ask this question. It's a contradiction in that you have a world food program, and you have here on the other side people wasting food, countries wasting food, corporations wasting, throwing away food. This contradiction is not, it doesn't make sense. We have so many people who need food, and there's so much of food that's wasted. The second figure that you need to look at is the arms industry. The arms industry in 2019 earned $361 billion. We just need, this is a total of about 25 companies, many countries involved in producing arms to kill another, to sustain conflicts, basically kill another person. No? Okay, now you have 361 billion. And so just now, I think you shared a figure of $8 billion required by the World Food Program to resolve the hunger of a lot of people in the world. We have $361 billion that are being generated by selling arms. Can you see the contradiction? I mean, you're spending money, so much of money on arms industry, and here people need food. Here you're producing weapons to kill. You want to save life, you want to kill. And this whole narrative of peace in the world, one group talks about peace, one group talks about war, conflict, arms industry, and arms sales. And let me tell you that in the figures you showed in the slides, you had mentioned US and Germany. Some of the major, the biggest contributor to US. So the US starts. In fact, the initial idea of the World Food Program was started in the US. The present ED is an American. They also give money for the World Food Program, a big amount, but they also are the major arms sales. In terms of arms sales, they are one of the major country, and so is Germany. We have about 5 countries. You have US, you have Russia, you have France, UK, Germany, and China. These are countries that sells arms, make a lot of money from arms. So you have one side country supporting World Food Program and peace, and you have the same company, the same countries and companies in those countries selling arms to create, to sustain, to benefit from peace. So we do not know whether this is authentic peace they are supporting or this is peace as business. This becomes very confusing in a context like this, when you have the arms industry, not by somebody else, by the same people who are supporting the World Food Program. So you need to ask yourself this question, that what are we doing? What kind of world are we living in? This is a kind of terrible contradiction. You have peace on one side and you have the same people talking about uh, uh, or sustaining war, sustaining conflicts. And then you have the first figure was on food wastage. The second was on arms industry. The third one I want to share with you in terms of trying to understand the world we are living in and this Nobel Prize business is inequality. Inequality in the world. Inequality in the world is growing and growing and growing. It's not stopped. It's like inequality gone wild. It's just gone wild. Somebody actually used the word. It's gone wild. It's gone berserk. It's not stopping. And during the pandemic, if you go and look at the figures, just Google a little bit and see what happened to the value of the billionaires during pandemic. They made a lot of money. They made a lot of money from a lot of people losing their jobs. So you're beginning to understand what is this. There's so much of suffering on one side and so much of cruelty on the other side. Now, if you look at these inequality figures, 1% of the global billionaires own about 44% of the global wealth. Now, 1% of the global billionaires, there are about 2,200 billionaires in the world. So 1% of that is holding 44% of the wealth of the world. Now, the most ridiculous figure is this. 10 rich people have a combined amount of $801 billion. That is much bigger than many countries in the world. Now, we don't need the World Food Program. We don't need the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This money is enough if they're only willing to share. And how much was the budget for the World Food Program? It was about 8 billion or 10 billion. Let's say 10 billion. This is $801 billion by 10 persons in the world. You just need 10% of that value. And if you divide it by 10, it's a small amount for the billionaire. And the problem of hunger is stopped. It is overcome. So I think one of the things, therefore, you need to ask yourself, as students, as people concerned about what we are doing, is this question, that we have all these instances of unsustainability, instances of cruelty, instances of supporting causes which are beneficial for a small group but really harmful for a lot of people, including animals and plants, nature. So it is in this context you have to see minimally you have to see the role of the Nobel Peace Prize and the awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize to an organization. Now, of course, some of you all may feel that what's the point? No, nothing is solved. But I think that the real question we need to ask is not the real question. I think that one of the questions we need to ask is how do we keep these narratives, these discussions on authentic peace going, and be careful about peace as business? You have to keep in mind if there is a whole argument that goes along this line that too much of peace is bad for business. You need conflict, you need war. Those days you produced weapons to fight a war. Now you produce you need a war to create the demand for weapons. So you have very contradictory, difficult situations which you need to deal with. But what I think we need to focus is on how do you, in this kind of context, how do you keep the narratives on peace, authentic peace going on? That is that's my concern. No, if we give up, it's a point at one point you say nothing can be done. No? Look at the figures. The figures doesn't show any hope for us as individuals, as communities, as nations. We are going to just be going downhill. But how do we address this problem? So I would see minimally this Nobel Peace Prize as an attempt to keep alive this whole concern for peace, and awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize to whether individuals or organizations is a way to keep that narrative alive, to engage people to think about the issue of peace. Okay, so if you take that as a minimum requirement, it's not the best, but the minimum requirement, then we let's look at what are the lessons from awarding awarding the World Food Program the prize. Just some lessons that I think we can learn from this, and to see if that lessons can help us to address the issue of peace in a much more holistic sense. There's no such thing as just looking at peace, only peace. You cannot do that. No, that sometimes this disciplinary focus is dangerous, in the sense that you say, okay, I want to only discuss peace. You can't discuss peace alone. There is no such thing as peace means only studying peace. Peace is connected with a lot of things. There's something called a peace ecology. If you look at, of course, it was something that came up in 2006, I think 2006. Somebody, a professor at an American university, started talking about peace ecology. So that is a concern for peace ecology, which means that peace is really a very interconnected thing. It's got a lot of aspects that we need to pay attention to. There are ecological aspects, there are peace aspects, there are social aspects, there are technological aspects, there are spiritual aspects. There are a lot of things. It's an interconnected thing. And just to address peace is not going to solve our problem. We need to address peace in a multi-layer level. No? So, so the question you can ask is WFP really doing that? That's one question you can ask in terms of awarding World Food Program the prize. But criticisms aside, I'm talking about minimum. We come to the lessons we learned from this award that was given to the World Food Program. The first lesson I would think, which is important, is that we have become so cruel. I mean, on one side, we are very compassionate. There's so much of kindness in the world. People reaching out to others to help in simple ways. I'm not talking about big leaders. I'm talking about simple people reaching out to each other for helping each other out during conflict, during difficulty, even during this pandemic. So many people helping each other out. Very simple, simple people doing very simple things to help each other out. But in spite of that, there's so much of cruelty in the world, that we can even think of how to use food as a weapon. We weaponize food. Such a basic thing that we require, all of us require, including animals, other beings that require food. We weaponize food in order to hurt community, a nation, in order to make a point, in order to take over some assets, in order to conquer a place, in order to get rid of a kind of genocide of people whom you don't like. we have become so cruel in this world, that we have lost our basic sense of an empathetic compassion. I mean, reaching out to others who need help to look after them, to support them. We have lost that. And if you look at the figures for arms industry, you look at the figures for inequality, you begin to think that this is really a very cruel situation. You have one group of people who are losing jobs during this pandemic, last 1 year, losing jobs, having so much of, you're going through so much of pain and suffering, and you have one group of billionaires making a lot of money. So first thing is, one lesson is, anything, the human being mind is so creative, even in the darker side, we create all kinds of problems for ourselves, and we have weaponized food, and I think that is something that's a narrative that you have to confront. How do you stop this weaponizing of food? How do we address this weaponizing of food? So WFP to an extent, is trying to address that, and move towards zero hunger position. But let's not even think about zero hunger. Zero hunger is another problem, because zero hunger is just not about weaponizing food, it's also about inequality. But that minimum program of, can we stop people from weaponizing food? Just stop, even if they say it's number one enemy, don't weaponize food. One is a food, okay, weaponize. The second thing is the issue of that the problems that we have today are no more local problems purely. We have now, the problems have become global. Whatever, many of the problems we have today, critical problems, are global problems, whether it's climate change or food or water issues, religious challenges. All this has become global problems. So we need to understand that our solution cannot be at a national level when our problems are global. We need to address global problems from a global point of view. We cannot be so narrow-minded to think patriotism is something else. I don't want to get into this discussion of patriotism and nationalism, but crude nationalism is very disastrous. It's the same thing is happening now that about this vaccine nationalism, which is very dangerous in terms of the availability of vaccine to people. So if you start looking at this problem in a very narrow sense, my community, my people, we cannot solve this problem. And particularly food insecurity, we cannot solve. And this has to be a collective cooperative effort. So the second lesson is that problems have become global, trans-border, and we have to grow to that. We have to become global citizens eventually. As students of political science, to be a global citizen means what? And those are things that I think some of the questions you need to ask yourself, because we cannot solve our problem anymore from within the national framework. It is gone beyond. And food problem, you cannot. It's really gone beyond. And from that, if it's gone beyond, what is the next thing which has become downplayed over these years because of many other bad experiences? International cooperation, regional and international cooperation. This cooperative spirit has also lost its way. I mean, in international relations, if you heard you heard this the director say, and if you heard the lectures or the lecture by the or the speech by the minister who gave away this prize, she mentions very clearly that international cooperation has become downplayed over the years, and that has become also a problem in addressing global problems. We are no more facing problems which are local. We are facing problems which are global, which has local implications. So we have to be also global in our in the way we attend to these problems. So I think that is a third lesson, that we need to reclaim this cooperative spirit. We have to move away from this scarcity, conflict, to abundance, cooperative spirit. We have enough to share, but are we ready to share? because we work in different paradigms, and more of these paradigms is about, hoarding, not about sharing. So the cooperative spirit and international cooperation is absolutely crucial for this issue of food, and a step towards global peace. Because all these issues are really also issues on sustainability, issues on how we make the world sustainable for ourselves and for other lives on Earth. And the last point I wanted to share as a lesson from this awarding the WFP program is that, if you remember in this video clip that you shared and which I shared earlier, that if all the billionaires, and that is a pun intended, if you get all these billionaires to come together and share their wealth, not give up their wealth, just share their wealth, we have our problems. So many of our problems are solved. They are talking about global poverty, getting rid of global poverty, and they have this, UN SDGs with 17 goals and 170. I'm telling you, this UN SDGs are not going to work. After 5 years, we're going to have another round of discussions of how this doesn't work, and we need another UN SDGs. We have already enough money. You stop the arms industry, you stop the billionaires from hoarding, we have enough money for the whole globe many times over. We have the solutions with us, but are we willing to take that political stand that, we have to reduce and get rid of arms industry, of so much of wealth being wasted there and human resources being wasted there, and so many billionaires making money out of human misery, out of cruelty, out of destroying the environment, and therefore putting a lot more other people in trouble, putting animals into trouble, destroying forests, which are absolutely required for us. So, so he mentions, we just need this little money from you and we will solve our world hunger problem. And he's almost like begging them, say, all of you have just to make a little sacrifice and be a soft. So the last lesson is, we have enough. I think we have the solution. We have everything. Now, how do we get it done? That is our biggest challenge. We are stuck in a system that has generated all these complications. Food waste on one side, arms industry on one side, inequality spiraling. There's a runaway inequality, and in the midst of that, we are talking about peace. You cannot talk about peace in that kind of context, and just about peace. And that brings to I'll conclude it. That brings to what I wanted to say is this: in a context of peace ecology, we need to keep in mind that you cannot have peace unless you create a sustainable world. And I'm talking about not just the UN SDG. I'm talking about sustainable in relation to spirituality. In spirituality, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about, we have to start learning how to, control our desires and our wants, and just creating things, destroying everything, creating. Do we really need all these things? We need to ask some questions to ourselves. So peace doesn't happen or cannot be sustained unless we have a sustainable world, in which we use sustainable technologies, we use sustainable consumption, sustainable production, and make sure that everybody is no one is left behind, as this great word comes from UN SDGs, but it actually comes from a religious group. No one is left behind. So peace must be in the context of sustainability, and sustainability must be in the context of a compassionate foundation. If we do not feel individually or in a collective for the other people, not only people, for other beings, if we do not reach out for other people who are suffering, who you must support, because what will happen to them can happen to you. You are no different. It can happen to you anytime. So this feeling for the other, and this needing to reach out to the other, to embrace the other, to to bring the other to a level where, the suffering is taken away, or to be with the person, if it is a, bodily suffering of an ailment, to be with the person during the suffering period. If we do not have that kind of emotional, social, cultural foundation, we cannot build a sustainable world. And if we cannot build sustainable world, we cannot build a kind of living peace. And if we cannot build this interconnected spheres, as a peace ecology, we cannot really have a world, and we can go on till kingdom come, avoiding peace prizes, Nobel Peace Prize, and somebody else may come out with something else. We can go on giving this for years to come, but we will not be able to resolve this problem of using food as a weapon, nor achieving peace by actually, serving people the food they need. I don't think we can do that. I think we need to understand this peace ecology, and we need to somehow connect these things and work. And so each one of us can work at different levels to contribute to a peaceful world. Okay, thank you so much. I hope I made some sense. Yo,
Yeah.
is that okay?
Yes.
Thank,
Yeah. So I mean you can we can have a Q&A, but I would suggest that you don't expect me to answer all the questions. I would like to see some of you all having your own. You must have your own opinion, and you can also share, so that I can share whatever I know and I can
thank you
offer.
very much, sir.
Okay.
It was a wonderful and very, very informative session for all of us. Now I call upon Asta Thakkar to moderate the question answer session, assisted by Shambhavi Sana.
Thank you so much. A very warm evening, sir. I'd like to call upon Ms. Gorika Bose to ask a question.
A very good evening to you, sir. My question to you is with regard to the Nobel Prize in general.
Yeah.
Now, while there are specific Nobel Prizes given in the fields of the three sciences as well as literature and now economics, considering some previous controversies regarding certain Nobel Peace Prize laureates like Henry Kissinger or Barack Obama, do you feel like the Nobel Peace Prize is now becoming a sort of umbrella term for fields that don't have designated awards, sort of like a none of the above option?
To be honest with you, I am not a great I'm not a great admirer of the Nobel Peace Prize, nor the awards they give. Some of the prizes they give away to certain groups, I appreciate that. But I think this as I was sharing with your teacher, it's become a routine. No? Every year you have to give some prize. So you just find somebody, you just plug them from somewhere and give. And if you go back and look at some of the people who have got the prizes, you'd be wondering, how come they give it to this person? I mean, you will actually be bang your head. No? How can they give this prize to this person? So, I mean, I don't know how to answer your question, but I am not very much into this. There are other alternatives. You do Google something called the Right Livelihood Awards, which is given. It is actually dubbed as the Alternative Peace Prize, the Right Livelihood Award, and that will give you. You look at the awardees of that, and you will find really grassroots people, very well. I mean, they are from the ground. There are also other kinds of levels, and then you have women, people from different parts of the world. And it's a much more balanced way of awarding in an international prize for recognition of great work, including peace. If you Google that and you will see that, you see that is a definite alternative to the Nobel Peace Prize. I hope I have answered your question. Not.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I'd like to call upon Ms. Elsa Philip to ask a question.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for your insightful talk. My question to you, my name is Elsa Philip, and I'm an SYBA student. My question for you, sir, is with respect to with respect to using hunger as a weapon in conflicts. Do you have any recommendations on authors or books so that we can read up more on the subject and gain more insight?
At this point in time, I can't give you any readings as such. But if you just leave your this thing, I can send you some. Certainly, I have, but this is not directly in the area I work. I have materials that I can share with you. So if you leave your email address with your Professor Paul, and I can then share these things with you. But do you know that World Food Program has got video games? You please go to their site. Go to their site. You know that?
No, sir, I was not aware of that, but that's
Yeah,
certainly
you
interesting.
go to their website, and they have some games which helps you to understand this issue of hunger. And also, through your activity, there will be advertisers who will be, sending money to World Food Forum. So, but the thing is, you can pick up certain things from the games. They have, I think, 2 or 3 video games. Just try it out. Besides that, for more serious reading, I'll send stuff. You have to keep this one thing in mind, that Syria is a very good example where you have this whole idea of how hunger is used, is weaponized. But you need to keep also in mind this whole background information of global inequality. Because global inequality is what has created this, somewhere a lot of artificial scarcity. And that has created a situation, where they can use food as a weapon. But I can send you some materials on that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. I'd like to call upon Ms. Mansi Pandey to ask a question.
Yes.
Good evening, sir. My question for you is that while many humanitarian organizations and other UN agencies celebrated the win of World Food Program, some say that giving the Nobel Peace Prize to a UN organization is a little controversial and does not make as much sense. So, what are your views on this matter?
That's true. That's true, because as I told you, as I shared with your the first your friend one, the first. I'm not a great admirer of this program, Peace Prize, and I mean, well, at one point you say, okay, fine, they are on all different organizations, so you give them for work that they have done. But just keep in mind, it is not the ED who's doing the work. There are really hardworking people on the ground who we do not see, who are facing problems, facing dangers, who are actually distributing this food. Just keep those little people in mind. The World Food Program is not operating by itself. They are operating by lots of people whose faces we do not see. They are there distributing the food, going dangerous places, and doing it. These people on top is what we all see. But so just keep those people in mind, and maybe it's very difficult now, because it's you're supporting a UN. It's an international body supporting a UN. I mean, they should have given to somebody else. I think so. Yes. But I'm just not answering your question directly, but that's the situation.
Thank you, sir. Now, I'd like to call upon Ms. Ayushi Ananda to ask a question.
Good evening, sir. My question to you is that food as a humanitarian aid might not be accepted by a country owing to its political environment. Like North Korea in recent years have been repeatedly declining aid from South Korea via World Food Program. So how do you think World Food Program deals with such a situation?
I'm so sorry. I really can't answer. Anybody else can answer this question? I have no answer to this question because I'm not very well versed with the actual mechanics of how the World Food Program goes about doing its work on the ground in different political, social, cultural environment or international contexts. But it's a point to reflect on that that international cooperation is an important component needed for people to to work through to support people who citizens who are hungry. So if you have a North Korean government that says we will not receive from Western or from any UN body, they are just hurting their own people. So in terms of international cooperation, in terms of the need to reach out when we need help, that's broken down in such kind of context. It may not be right, but how they are going to go about it is a long process. I don't think it can be easily done overnight. Yeah, Paul, do you have some?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just because it's a question related to international relations, uh, I think Nat will agree with me that North Korea's refusal is largely ideological. Okay, so it's a crime to their own people that just because they are differing in ideology or their supposed opponent offers, they're declining it. It's like Pakistan saying they won't take India's offer of help during a natural calamity. So egos come in the way too. I mean, you can't really be compassionate and promote peace because you're not helping anyone, you're not helping yourself. Now, China, of course, will help North Korea, but there's a certain limit. So, which means they are willing to starve and torture their people at the cost of pride. Okay, so as Nat said, you spend such a lot on defense, and you look at the North Korean army, the drills, etc. It looks excellent. But on the other hand, there are starving millions which we don't see, and North Korea's refusal is downright inhuman. That's all I can say. But what their strategies are, etc., these are all political games, war games that people play, and citizens are at the receiving end, and that's all I have to share. The, there is a lots of people in the participant group, but unfortunately, Nat, they won't be able to use the audio and share their views.
Okay, it's
So
okay. Send
yeah,
me. I like these
yeah,
questions.
yes,
Do
I
send me
will
the
send.
questions, and I will reflect on them, and maybe send it to you. Then you can share it with them.
Yes,
Some of these questions are really good questions. I
thank
mean, I
you.
would look at it.
Yeah, Asta, continue. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to call upon Ms. Gorika Bose to ask a question.
Hello, sir. My next question to you is that, as far as I've read, the World Food Program receives its funds from governments and public organizations as well as certain private donors. However, is there an annual audit to sort of be accountable for where these funds are being spent?
I think the UN has a reasonably good audit process, and if I know it generally with I know some of my friends who work there also in the UN, they have quite strong processes, procedural processes in place, audit included. But having said that, I also like us to remember that the games they can play are incredible. No? If you know the, if you would you have you heard of the oil for food program of which was something was done for Iraq? If you or there are some for many conflict areas, there are special programs that they had started. I think oil for food, and then there's something for Bosnia issues. And if you look at the way the UN worked in those places, it's just horrendous. They did some really bad things. In spite of the fact that they have a lot of procedures to follow, they have a lot of way in bypassing them and doing really terrible things. In both in Iraq, they did terrible things, and they also did terrible things, for instance, in Bosnia, and none of the UN officials were pulled up, or the private contractors were pulled up. So I suppose they have, but I think you need to look at who's monitoring it. and how seriously they are monitoring those kind of responsibilities of the UN officials in this kind of programs. I think UN food program so far doesn't, I've not read anything really seriously bad about this World Food Program yet. You know, when I was younger, when the food for Iraq, food for oil for food program done, we thought it was a great program for the Iraqi people. But come a few years later, there were so many things coming out from there that it was horrendous. You know, it's how they manipulated the situation, how they played games, you know, to be able to hold on to the contract of this oil. So oil was more important than the food there. So, you know, we really do not know until, you know, this you know, kind of over some time, then you begin to see, oh, this is what they were doing. And it's only a hindsight then becomes, and many people would have died by then.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I'll be taking questions from the YouTube chat box.
Yeah.
Ms. Komal Salecha asked this question. Can individuals like us combat climate change and pave the way for peace, or are we insignificant in our efforts and only the wealthy and powerful hold the solutions?
No. I think climate change, you see, I mean, just let me contextualize. We are in a 10-year, 12 years eco-socio emergency. This is a UN IPCC meeting, climate meeting in Korea. They have said that we are all exposed to a very, very serious danger. We have pushed the climate to such an extent that it's going to be irreversible. And we have about 10 to 12 years at that time, maybe 10 years now, to really resolve this. As much as we can, many of the processes cannot be resolved because we have crossed what they call the ecological boundaries. We need to control it. So I think it is not the major role has to be played by corporations, by governments, but we can ourselves also play a lot of role. For instance, simple thing like, you know, plastic bottles, the use of mineral water, you know, drinking mineral water, the use of plastic bottle, that can be controlled very much, you know. So there are many small things that you can actually, the kind of things you buy, the kind of food you buy, the kind of drinks that you take into your, which you consume. These are small things that you can take. And again, if you are interested, I can send you a book. It's a tool book, so don't worry. This is an environmental tool book. I can send you a tool book again, written by this Greta Thunberg. She has written, not only her, but a lot of people, young activists, young people who have put together a book that you can look at. And she has mentioned, and not only hers, I mean, there are many people who have written and shared small things that you can do in order to help in small ways to handle this climate change. So don't think that since you are individual that you have to you need these big people to work. We need the big people to work because they really are big polluters. But we can do the big polluters also sometimes sustain their this thing because we make choices to buy their product, to choose the lifestyle they tell us to choose. So we need to be aware of those things, and we can certainly take a lot of action. And many of these things will move the sustainability agenda forward. And remember, keep in mind the sequence of you have a more sustainable world, you have a more peaceful world.
That was very insightful. Thank you so much. And we have one more question by Angeline. Wouldn't making all donations anonymous put a stop to private companies trying to gain a good reputation from donating?
Come again?
Yes. Wouldn't making all donations anonymous put a stop to private companies trying to gain a good reputation from donating?
Good. she's asking me whether it's right.
Yeah, she's asking whether if donations are made like completely anonymous,
Yeah. It
will
will be a
they?
good thing, but all I can say is it's so difficult now. Even if then they give it in CSR donations, you have these persons holding this big check, and saying that they have given so much of money to public causes. It's so difficult for people to give away money actually for helping another to without advertising it. They have to advertise it. It's a promotional activity. So that's the culture that we have. So if you can get people, if this friend of yours can get people to actually donate without being named, that will be a great shift in our values. It will be very difficult. I don't know if I answered the question, but that is what I think.
Thank you so much, sir. And now calling for the last question for today. I'd like to call upon Ms. Ayushi Ananda to ask it.
Thank you, Astha.
Yeah.
Sir, my question is that in the pandemic hit India, treating government of India as a primary partner, do you think a World Food Program could have provided direct assistance to migrant laborers in crisis?
My my understanding of this was the migrant issues not only in India, many places. I'm basically from Malaysia. Okay, even there is the same problem. They did not. You see, the world has got so mixed up, and we have so many migrants and one side migrants, the other side refugees. You have a lot of these people hanging around all over the place, whether it's inside the country or across the country. So when they did the pandemic, they just did not, they considered only citizens. They did not consider the migrants. And migrants everywhere got into trouble. Many people got into trouble. Not only, it's across the US, you can hear about that severe thing going on across the borders. In Europe, in many other places, So I suppose it's not just an Indian problem, that the migrant issue is really a global problem. That's why I said these migrants, refugees, all this is a global problem, and we cannot have a national solution. And so, as you rightly say or believe, that the World Food Program could work if we had a global understanding that our migrants have to be taken care. They have come all the way to support the nation. They have to be taken care of, whether internal or external migrants. And so any action for pandemic should also involve decisions about how they will take care of their food in a very primary sense. That was not done across. Many people, a lot of people, many places, people suffered because of this pandemic. The migrants in particular, because they had because they were not citizens, they were really exposed to a lot of difficulties.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm extremely sorry. We have one more question by Ms. Padmanjali Chauhan.
Okay. Yes.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My question for you is,
Yeah.
how does ending hunger bring stability into conflict-ridden countries like, as we discussed, Syria or Yemen?
This is a narrative that you have to be careful about. Just stop. That's why I say you have to look at the peace ecology. You have to look at this whole combination of issues. Now, you can, at one level, you can bring, if you stop hunger, you can sort of take care of some people. Okay, but if that country where the inequality is very high, or if the powers that are there are buying arms to fight, we are not going to stop. So the stopping of hunger alone is not. I mean, that is a narrative they are building, but I really don't buy it, because that is not the way the world is built. Because you stop, you give enough food, that is a temporary situation. But if when they go back to their normal and still high level of inequality, they will still be unable to access food. How long can you support a population with food? You say, so you can take them out of hunger, but how do you sustain them with enough food? That becomes a responsibility of the country to be sustainable. But if the country is conflict driven, how do you make a sustainable world? And you cannot. So it stops at one level. You can't completely get to a peaceful state. So,
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. The question on surround now ends.
No.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, you have one more question. Yes.
No. We have some more time, sir. So if you would like to address one question by Madhura on militarism, Madhura, would you like to ask your question? Okay, go ahead. Video.
Yes. I can't hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Can you? I hope you can hear me now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so militarism gives power. Gives powerful nations staying power. Now, compassionate foundations and reducing military expenditure and so forth sounds utopian. But big economies, capitalist and sometimes progressive economies also have huge stakes in militarism. How do we practically overcome that, sir, in this greedy world? Thanks.
You should give me. How do you practically? Basically I don't have an answer to that. That is what I am proposing is a number of people with whom also I work, and is that fact is that we are doing the UN and other organizations are simply telling us a lot of stories about sustainable development goals, this and that, but in international fora they do not stand up to this issue of arms industry and to the issue of the inequality, the careless support of billionaires. Now we have two of these realities in the world that are basically part of a neoliberal order, a kind of a system that works. Okay, so we have leaders and managers who are supporting this, and we are carelessly supporting these leaders and managers. So to ask for a compassionate world is utopian, but maybe idealistic. But if you are going to continue supporting, continue to buy your plastic bottles, continue to consume your cosmetics, then you are actually supporting that world that these people are promoting. So the whole the effort to face up to these big realities does not only involve these leaders and managers whom we have put up there or whom we are supporting. It also depends on what kind of decisions and what kind of choices we are making in terms of our personal choices at personal level and our political choices at the local or national level or the international level, regional level. So some of these choices, these narratives have to change. Are you ready to make these narratives? Are you ready to stand up there? And if you are not ready to stand up there, then I think we have to accept that I want only this. And there we will see what is practical and what is utopian. The analysis that certain of us go on to say this is practical and this is not practical, this is being compassionate or empathetic, this is not, it doesn't really hold until you are ready to take a stand from your own understanding that whether what you're doing is right or wrong. So if you think that the arms industry is doing a lot of more harm, how would you have to find a way, or a number of you have to find a way. there are so many people who are in the world who are fighting against no arms in the no arms world, no violent, non-violent world. There's a lot of organizations that are working. Will you go and work with them? No, you will not. I'm not talking about you. Many of us won't want to go there because there is no money there. We won't go there. But there are people who are struggling for this kind of world. And to think that only there is a government and this and that is also wrong, because if you look at the array of organizations that are fighting for a peaceful world in relation to arms, there are a huge number. There are a huge number of organizations that are fighting for that kind of world. So the choices we make personally is something which we have to ask ourselves: Are we ready to have a world that is without arms? Are we ready to stop making decisions on this and decision on that, supporting this leader, that manager? Because today's problem is also the problem of leadership and leaders and managers. So I don't have answer to you as a straight path. There is no straight path to getting rid of the arms industry. And the dangers of dealing with the arms industry. But if our politicians, our international politicians and national politicians and us do not take some stand with these organizations that are fighting, there is no hope for us. We have 10 years. You can do whatever you want. Within these 10 years, we are going to have a lot of complications in the weather. You just see what is happening in the US. It's a country that boasts of a lot of things. They couldn't even supply enough water and heat to their own population. That's what's going to happen in many of the societies. We cannot handle the climate change that is coming, and many of these climate change issues are also partly connected to conflicts, war, industry. But we will not take a stand on that. Nobody will take many of us want to stay away from that kind of being a citizen.
Okay, Asta, if I may. Yeah, just this thanks to Nat's inspiring speech, I think you set the ball rolling, and you also ignited some fire. On the YouTube, there's the only type of war which I support. There is an intellectual war of words going on between Komal and Angeline Jesudasan. They're exchanging a lot of views. Of course, one of the views which Angeline Jesudasan says, it's very interesting. Nat, you can give only a brief comment because I know you can speak for hours on this. She says she worries about whether India is really a socialist democracy, but she's more concerned whether in India, civil society and maybe the intellectuals like us, we are more concerned about rich people making money, but we are not concerned about what is happening to the rest of the society and their economic plight. That seems to be her dilemma.
That's a huge area to talk about at this time.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, and the discussion is between Komal and Angeline and others.
But it's a good.
Which is very
a number
nice.
of very interesting questions. I would, but if it may start off another track altogether.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Asta, for the permission. Now we can continue.
Yeah. Sorry, some of the questions, would require a lot more deliberations and discussions. And since I can't share a lot of things with you, that we are just sharing thoughts. I'm not able to respond as much as I wish to.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I would like to call upon Shambhavi Sinha to give a vote of thanks.
On behalf of the Department of Political Science, the Sophia Nobel Oration Series team, and the Sophia College management, I, Shambhavi, deem it my pleasant duty to propose a vote of thanks. I thank Dr. Nadaraja Manikam, the speaker for the day, for his most inspiring and informative lecture. Thank you, sir. I thank Dr. Sister Ananda Amrit Mahal, our principal, for providing us the opportunities, resources, and encouragement to conduct this event. Thank you, sister. I also thank in a special way Dr. Bhavna Daswani, Dr. Snehal Martin, Dr. Hema Subramaniam, and Dr. Yasmin Khan for their support and help in organizing this event. Also, special thanks to Dr. Meeta Saxena. We are grateful to RUSA for enabling us to hold such events. I thank all the students of the Department of Political Science and all the organizing committee members, especially Shriya, Saima, Vaishnavi, Astha, Madhura, Elsa, Padmanjali, for their active participation and contributions. I thank Dr. Paul Rosario, our head of department, for giving us this opportunity to organize and learn. My sincere thanks to all the audience and participants from both near and far.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the questions. A lot of learning from my side. Some questions, I will hold. I will think about it. And some of you all have asked for something. I'll send it to Paul and share it. And I will also send a list of organizations you can look at as something. Some people you can contribute to in small ways, in big ways, for a more peaceful world, for a more compassionate world. And it's not going to come easy. It will never come easy because we ourselves sometimes don't believe in it. So we need to take some time to look around.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Lastly, before leaving, I just want to say, as we know, teachers always like to give instructions. Sometimes organizers also like to give instructions. Today,
okay.
I also wanted to give some instructions. Please fill the feedback form. It's very valuable for us as well as for you to getting the certificate. The link of the feedback form is up in the chat box. Please fill it. Thank you very much and have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Thank you. Take care.